This is my first ever review. My name's James. I own Condor Vehicle Sales, which is a car showroom down in sunny Devon. And I thought today I'd choose the BMW 430i M-Sport convertible that we've just taken into stock. So I'll show you around it.
So naturally, we'll start with the exterior of the car. This particular M-Sport is in the Estral Blue, which is an M-Sport colour. It also has the bigger 19-inch alloy wheels, which I think really set the car off. They fill it quite nicely in the arches. The M-Sports have a slightly more aggressive bumper cutaway, really, to give it that real sporty look. Obviously, they all have the kidney grills, which we like. The honeycomb and just in the bottom of it there. But I think as far as the aesthetics go, it's very clean lines, quite an aggressive looking car. I also think that continues around to the rear. As you can see, it's got facelifted lights as part of the 67 plate. But you've got some nice sharp cutaway lines in the bumper there. I think the convertible gives a more menacing look than the coupe does, in all honesty. And with the roof down, I think it looks really, really cool. You know, it's still got that aggressive stance to it. It's still very sleek, very clean lines all around. Really sets it off on those 19-inch alloy wheels. I mean, that is a very good looking convertible. So you're joining me in the BMW 4 Series that I've just introduced to you. So this particular is the 4 Series convertible, and in particular to that is the BMW 430i M-Sport convertible. And obviously what BMW used to do with their letterings and their numbers is that they'd have engine sized comparable to it. So a lot of people have the conception that it's the 430 being the 4 Series 3 litre. But this particular one is a 2 litre twin turbo. So as much as obviously it's not the 3 litre, it still packs a punch, 258 brake horsepower. And I have to say, with the 8-speed gearbox, it's plenty. Obviously you can get the BMW M4, and that is an animal, and I love the M4. I think it's a cracking car. This is a little bit more of an understated. It's still got performance, but you can drive it through a nice estate and not be glared at. You can take it to an afternoon tea and not be considered a yob. So I think it certainly has its place within the market. The 4 Series, they come in both petrol and diesel. I don't mind diesel cars personally. I think they've all got their purpose. But the petrol, you know, it's probably a preference for a convertible. There's nothing nicer than having a convertible with a nice throaty sounding engine. And as a 2 litre goes, it's really not too bad. We've got different power ratings across the range. So you can start with the 420i, which is a 2 litre single turbo. That produces 184 brake horsepower. And then you've got the 430i, which of this era is 252 brake horsepower. The 440i, which is a 3 litre single turbo, but they call it a twin power turbo. That one whacks it up to about 326 brake horsepower. And then of course you've got the M4 Cabriolet, which is that same 3 litre engine, but it's a twin turbo, and it certainly has a few trick bits with a very nice sounding exhaust. So the diesel side of things, you've got the 418D, which is a 2 litre turbo diesel producing about 150 brake horsepower. The 420D, same engine, ramped up on the power at about 190 horsepower. And then the 430D, which is that 3 litre inline 6, that one there produces about 258, so it's probably the comparable to the 430i. And then the 435D, which I think is a tremendous engine, it's the same 3 litre engine, but it's a twin turbo, and that produces about 313 horsepower. And again, I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up at it, albeit a diesel. A lot of petrol heads obviously are just that, they are petrol heads, but I'm a car enthusiast that seems to like all of them. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. But yeah, you know, I think this 430i is very capable, and I think definitely a fun engine to have. And it doesn't really break the bank. I mean, obviously, if you're going to go for a 440 or you're going to go for an M4, you've got to be prepared to spend that little bit more money. But if you want a 4 Series convertible, you get the M-Sport trim, you get this M-Sport steering wheel, you get the Estral Blue on the inside, which of course you can change from factory, but you'll see it on the door card here. The Estoril blue on the exterior, that is also an M-Sport only colour. So if you ever see a BMW in this colour, you have to know it's an M-Sport specification. So you want all the trick bits and you want it to sound alright when you're going along down the road. I don't think the 430i is a bad shout at all. The only thing I did find with the 420i is it makes all the right noises but doesn't necessarily pack the same punch, if that makes sense. I think the 430 is a very good compromise should you still want some performance. This particular 430i that I'm currently in today has only had one previous keeper from new, but he seems to have driven it quite a lot. So this particular one's done 112,000 miles, just over. But I've got to give credit where credit is due with BMWs. I'm a big fan of them. I think they wear extremely well. So considering it's done 112,000 miles, and at this point it's only been on the road for about 5 years, you wouldn't necessarily notice that it's done 112,000 miles. I'd say, you know, the steering wheel's not particularly worn. There's a little bit of wear on the bolster here, which I'll get sorted. But other than that, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily think it had done half the miles. I think they're all built ever so well. You know, it's nice hard-wearing leather. The dash, nice leather finish on there as well. The door card, got the leather on the side here. None of the switches have worn away. None of the buttons look like they've faded or anything like that. And it all still works. You know, we test every vehicle that we have in. And I've got to say, I'm massively impressed. I mean, I think the guy really looked after it in the sense that it's got a full BMW main dealership service history, which nowadays, of course, is all on the iDrive system. So you can check the dates and the mileage, you can tell whether it's been done on time or whether it's been done late. So he, as much as he did all the miles, I think he obviously cared for the vehicle to ensure that it could do all of the miles. So full BMW service history, he's kept both original keys, and I'm just genuinely impressed with how well that the vehicle's worn. And having done 112,000 miles in this particular car, you'd think maybe you wouldn't want to push it quite so hard, but I've got full faith in BMW producing what they produce and their engines being so good. I've got no issues at all. If you can find a nice empty bit of road like we're on, it's a good demonstration to show you that the 430i doesn't necessarily hang around. So it goes right up the rev range. And I think for a 2-litre twin turbo to produce that kind of performance is brilliant, really is. I don't know whether you'll be able to pick it up on the mic, whether you heard that or not, but it certainly goes along. Pins you into the back of your seat almost. You know, I'm not saying that it's going to compete with the 440 or the M4 as previously mentioned, but I don't think you'd be disappointed, let's put it that way. So a little bit more about the interior of the vehicle. Everything's where you would kind of expect it to be. Obviously, you've got your window switches nice and close. It being the Cabriolet, you've got one big button at the bottom which controls all of the windows at the same time. Quite a nice feature to have. Your mirror adjustment on that same panel. Your lights just here. Most M-Sport BMWs now, they all have the automatic xenons on there, which is a very nice feature. You've also got your dial brightness, which you can change, your front and rear, your fogs. Your wipers, again, most have an automatic wiper function, very easy to use, although I would advise you don't necessarily keep them on automatic, only because if you jump into your car and you've left it for a couple of days and there's dust and maybe the odd, you know, sharp bit on your wiper, it'll automatically go and you'll end up scratching your windscreen, which isn't necessarily the best form of practice. Steering wheel controls, really quite easy to use. You've got your volume controls for your audio system here, your Bluetooth telephone controls of which you can answer and decline calls. Cruise control on the left hand side, very easy to operate. Switch it on, knock this little dial here up, and you've set the cruise control at whatever you've just set it to, and then you can click it up. You can do it singularly, or if you double click it will go up by 5-mile-an-hour increments, which again is quite a nice thing. Should you touch your foot on the brake or anything like that, or cancel it out, you can press this resume button and it'll pick up where you left off. So perfect for motorway crawling, really. Indicators on the left hand side, they seem to have done away with the indicators that return to this position here. So it used to be that it would click down, return to that position, and then once you've made your turn, it would automatically come off. But these here, when you click them down, they tend to stay down rather than bringing themselves back up. I thought I quite liked the old one, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Your dual climate control, got a nice LED screen just down here as well. Obviously you can set your climate to be driver's side one temperature, passenger side the other, and you can of course sync them, make them automatic, etc, etc. Seat heating, you'd think, you know, very easy as to where they are, so that's good. You've also got touch sensitive buttons from 1 through to 8, and you can set these numbers to various different functions. So a lot of people tend to think that obviously what everyone normally does is having your radio station saved, but you can actually save it to phone numbers. So if you need to quick dial one person, that you do that quite regularly, you can have that as just one of these numbers. You press it, as long as your phone's connected, it'll dial out to that person. Or a feature that I quite like with BMs, because I used to have the BMW 330d X-Drive Touring, beautiful car, really loved it. My number 8 was my home postcode, so I pressed number 8. Didn't matter where I was within the system, didn't matter where I was within the UK, obviously, it would then set my satellite navigation to get me home. So that was quite a nice thing to have. You've also got this screen here. It sometimes looks like in certain models that it should retract away, but it doesn't, it stays where it is. It's a touchscreen system, controlled by this iDrive too, and I have to be honest, I prefer to control it by the iDrive. I think it's just a little bit far-fetched, a little bit out of the way to touch it, and also you don't necessarily get a feedback quite so much with touchscreen. I quite like the fact that with the dial, it's nice and easy, it's just down here. You don't necessarily need to distract yourself by trying to find what it is. You can press menu, you can go across, you can kind of glance at it and make it so. With the touchscreen, you've almost got to reach forward, and I don't know, I prefer it just to have the iDrive, but you know, I just won't touch it. It's nice and easy. So yeah, I mean, interior wise, I think everything's within reach. It's a nice cockpit to be in. You've got all of your controls relatively close by. You've got your Sport and your Eco Pro modes here, which, believe it or not, do actually make a difference on certain cars. You put it in Sport mode, it doesn't really do much, but this one here, you can put it into Sport mode, your throttle becomes more responsive, your steering actually becomes slightly heavier as well, so you get a bit of a better feel for the road. And then you've also got Sport Plus. Sport Plus is fantastic, and you should always take it with a little bit of a warning, because it actually limits your slipping traction control. So it allows the rear wheels to spin a little bit, not completely, it doesn't turn it off completely, but it does allow it to spin a little bit, and you've always got to be careful, because of course if you're not used to a car doing that, it could cause all sorts of havoc. The Eco Pro, which is the other end of the spectrum, so essentially you can put that on, you get less response from your throttle. It also changes how powerful your air conditioning is. So when your air conditioning is on, ordinarily your pump's running continuously. On Eco Pro, it kind of cuts in and out as of when it thinks that it needs to, and it also gives you a little bit of a dial down here to tell you how many miles that you've saved whilst you're in Eco Pro. It's an alright feature. If you're gonna, I'd only realistically use it if I'm going to travel 100 miles on the motorway. You may as well save some fuel. If you're going to do a bit of town driving and just, you know, local roads like I am today, I wouldn't necessarily put it in there, because I think it just makes it a little bit boring, a little bit too slow, and you don't really save much by doing it on that kind of journey. So I'd almost purely use it for a long motorway haul. This particular one has got the front and rear parking sensors on it as well, with the rear camera, and of course that all comes up onto your center screen here. So it gives you an optical display on one side where it shows you how close you are from the object, and then you've got your rear camera almost on the other side, obviously giving you the rear view. So yeah, really nice to have. I think most of which would have the front and rear sensors, but this particular one has the camera as well. They're all as keyless ignition, so you've got the start button just down here, and what I quite like about it is the start and stop technology button. To turn that off is just above. I personally am not a huge fan of the start and stop technology. I think it kind of hesitates you when you come to roundabouts and things like that. You can turn that off. It doesn't bring up any warning lights or anything on your dash, which some models do. I like to have a nice clean dash. No one likes to look at a warning light. So it's nice and easy. You can press that, you can turn that off, and just go about your time. But of course you have to do it every time you start it up. So when you start the vehicle, the start and stop is automatically on. You have to press that each time to turn it off. One of those things, but hey ho. A cool feature that I'd like to show you on the 4 Series convertible, just in the boot here. So obviously that's where the roof folds into. You can see I've got a couple of bags in there just for demonstration purposes. But what you can do, because obviously it's a little bit tight to get anything in and out, but you've got the switch on here. So if I press and hold that, that brings the entire roof mechanism up and out of the car. So if you need to get something out of here, you've got a bag at the back or anything like that, that is a fantastic innovative design to be able to do it. So it becomes far more practical, albeit obviously you don't gain any space doing so, but the accessibility of the space is far easier.
So that's the end of my first ever review video, I guess. So yeah, I've shown you around this BMW 430i M-Sport. I hope to do a lot more reviews. And yeah, any questions or comments or anything, give me a post. And Loki and I will see you soon.